We're going to talk about some JavaScript basics, which will tie in very well with the algos that we just did. First, I just wanted to show you guys that you can actually do JavaScript here in any browser window. So if I wanted to just run some random JavaScript here, I can open up my developer tools here, which we've been doing a little bit, but we want to go to this console tab. Wow. There's a lot of stuff in here. I'm just going to clear this out. Okay. And if I want to assign some variables or something like that, I can very quickly create something. So var my name, just type that in. Okay. And then if I want to, actually it says undefined here. Does anybody know why that's happening? It's because it didn't actually return anything, right? When I assigned a variable, nothing was actually returned out. So if I wanted to log this, or print it, I should say, we would do console.log, my name, and then we see we've got some output there. So that's pretty cool. So we could do some JavaScript inside of our browser. There are other places online that you guys can also run bits of JavaScript. So if I go up to, there's jsbin.com, and if you use this, you can actually type over on the left side and then see your output over on the right hand side. That's one option. Another one that you have is repl.it/languages/JavaScript. Here you can run some JavaScript over on the left, and then the right side is your terminal. You see this is node 10.16.0. Does anybody know what that is? What node is? Nobody knows what node is? Okay, that's okay. You guys will learn about it later on in the boot camp. But basically what node is it's a runtime environment for JavaScript. So it allows us to run JavaScript on our computer or on a server. Okay? All right. So today what we're going to do is I figured let's just run some JavaScript here from our console in VS Code. That'll be pretty fun. Because I already have Node installed on my computer, so we can run it that way. So I'm going to open up a terminal down here at the bottom. And let me make it a little bigger. Is that big enough, or is that too big? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this guy. Oops. Get out from where I am. Gosh, why does that look like that? It's like it's cut off or something. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to run it in such a way that every time I make a change to my file and I save it, it's just going to rerun my code. So to make it really nice and easy for us to sort of follow along with what's going on. So I'm going to say nodemon javascript-basics. Okay? And you can see there's nothing printed down in my console because, of course, I don't have anything going on in the code. I just have some comments. So the first thing we want to talk about are some of these different types of data that we're going to have in our programs. First one that we're going to talk about will be strings. What is a string? Sean? No, not exactly. Anyone have any other ideas of a string? Is that Diana? All right, Diana, what's a string? An array of variables? No, because it's not an array, right? It's a string. Who else has an idea what a string is? Lydia?
7 letters.
Yeah, it could also be other characters too, right? It could even be numeric characters. Or it could have special characters like semicolons and so forth. Okay, so let's just create a string here. I'm going to say var my string equals some special characters, right? Throw some stuff in there. Okay? Now notice when we create a string, what do we have to surround it with? Quotation marks. Exactly. All right, so let's console log that guy out. Console.log my string. Okay, and there we go. It actually printed it out for us. Very nice. What's happening here with this equal sign? Can anyone tell me what that means? Griffin.
You're storing the string into the variable string.
Right, so what we're doing is we're creating an assignment here. I'm saying I want to assign this long string of characters on the right-hand side of the equal sign to this particular variable, my string. Okay? Later on, what if I decided that I wanted to change what my string was? I don't want it to be that anymore. I want my string to be some new string. Okay? And now let's console log that again, right? String. Okay, notice how the value being held by this variable has in fact changed after I made that reassignment, right? Okay. So one way that you can kind of think about these variables that we're creating is like it's a box. It's a box that holds something, all right? And in the case of this, where we're just holding a string, it's holding what's called a primitive data type. Okay? You'll hear this term thrown around, especially with some of the other languages, that it's a primitive data type. You can kind of think of it as we can't get any smaller than that, right? It's not holding complex stuff. It's just holding one particular type. That's it. All right, good. What else can we do with strings? Yeah, we could do that. That's a good point. Let's do that. So let's say console log. I'm going to console log two things. So I'll say my string dot length. What's that? All right. So here we go. Some new string. You guys can see that 15 has been logged down there. Any idea why it's in a different color there? Because it's a number. Yeah, exactly. Very good. Cool. And if I wanted to access a particular character in that string, does anybody know how I would do that? I can essentially do it the same way that I would access particular elements inside of an array. So it would be index-based. If I wanted to get, I don't know, the third character there, what would the index of that be? That element? 2. Yeah, exactly. So let's print that out as well. So we'll say my string, and then I'm going to put in these square brackets, 2. Okay, so that printed out M exactly as we expected. Pretty cool. I can also add a couple strings together if I wanted to. So if I wanted to add, the string that I have right now plus my name, let's see that. Okay, so this is string concatenation. We're basically just pushing or putting those two strings together. All right. Nothing too crazy going on there. Griffin?
Are you allowed to just interchange the quotations with a single quote?
Yeah, and in fact, I was going to talk about that a little bit.
Because when I'm used to doing Java quotations with a string of characters with a single quote, I just want to make sure I don't get confused or different rules.
Right. So in JavaScript, we are allowed to kind of pick one and use it. I can either use double quotes or single quotes depending on my preferences. Now, there are some sort of caveats about that. So what if I'm creating a string, and we'll just call this new string. and I use double quotes, and I say some second, and I'm going to actually quote this. So I'm going to say some second string, and then quote that. What's wrong with this? You guys see that red squiggly there? Do you see how I have double quotes inside other double quotes? So that's problematic. There is a way to fix that, though, if I escape the double quotes that are inside using a backslash. So if I go like this, what I'm telling the program here is treat this as a literal double quote character. Do not use it to end that string. Okay? And by the same token, if I were using single quotes, so we'll say third string, and I set this up with single quotes, and inside there I want to use another single quote, right? So we'll say, say I'm trying to indicate some possession here, and I say this. Okay, I'm running into the same issue, which is that I'm trying to use an apostrophe here inside where I've surrounded things with a single quote. So I can use the same escaping technique if I need to. Can come in here and go like that. Okay? So now, again, I'm telling the program, please treat this as a literal apostrophe. Okay, and then if you print these guys out, I'll just print out both of them. New string, third string. Okay? So there we go. We're seeing what we expect, and we were able to escape those characters in such a way that it works. All right? Now, my advice as far as using single and double quotes, it's largely going to be a stylistic thing, but try to be consistent. So if you tend to like single quotes better, use them all the time. All right? That way you won't get confused. Cool. Any questions about strings? No questions? All right, cool. Let's keep going. We also have a data type numbers, which we've been seeing a little bit thus far. So let's say I want to create a number, my number, and I want to set that as a decimal. So actually, let me change this. We'll call this pi. Does anybody know what pi is? 3.14. How far does this go? Pretty far, right? Never stops. What are the next two, though? Does anybody know? 159? Oh, you guys are good. All right, cool. So if I console log pi here, all right, it's giving me exactly what I expect. JavaScript doesn't really care whether this is a decimal or it's an integer. Either way, it's of type number. So if I actually want to see what the type of that is, I can also say type of pi, and you'll see that it gave me number down there. So it's telling me that's a number. I can also have integers. So I'll say var my int equals 5. Same thing there. Okay. Now in other languages, what might the type of this be? Pi. I know, Griffin, you said you had some experience with Java. Wouldn't just be a number, right?
When you pointed at something, so.
Oh, so I was just saying, so if we had pi in some other language, like Java, for instance, it wouldn't be type number, right? It would be considered a double. Double, yeah.
And that just allows you to store decimals into it.
Right. So all I'm trying to show you guys is that as far as your JavaScript programs go, essentially it's not really going to matter if it's a decimal or a number. Either way, it's going to be of type number. Okay? All right, we can obviously do operations with numbers as well. So I could say something like console.log 5 plus 10. We're expecting that to be 15, right? And indeed it is. I can do other things like multiply them together, which we've been doing. 5 times 20, 100. Cool. All right. Now, riddle me this. If I have my int, which is 5 right now, and then I create a string, I'll call it my 5 string equals 5 inside single quotes. Are these two the same? This is my 5 string and then my int? No, you wouldn't think so. However, we're going to see some interesting behavior in JavaScript in regards to this as we go today with once we get to conditionals. All right. Any questions about numbers? No? All right, let's keep going then. So we've got this other primitive type called Boolean. Can anyone tell me what that is? A little louder? I think I heard the right answer. I just want to project it. What is it? True, false, right. So it's a value that is either one or the other. Okay? So let's create a Boolean. Var my bool equals true. Okay, and then we can console log that guy. Whoops. My bool. All right, it is indeed true. That's awesome. What if I were connecting to two conditions? So I wanted to say console log my bool and true. What should that give me? True and true, right? Which is also true, right? Okay, that logged true. What if I said true and false? What would that be? False. Okay. Yeah, so this double ampersand is basically ensuring that both of them have to be true. Right? Otherwise, we get the falsy one. Any questions about that? What if I said my bool or false? Does anybody know what that would return? Yeah, why? So there we go. Okay. The double pipes like this just means or in plain English. Okay. All right, that's probably about as exciting as Booleans are going to get. Anything else you guys want to see with Booleans? No? Oh, question. This one right here? Yeah, so the reason why is because I'm saying either one of these can be true, and that's what my result is going to be. Okay, so because my bool was true, that's why I got a true out of it. Now, if they were both false, then what would the result of this have been? If they were both false, then it would have been false, right? All right. I don't want to get in the woods on Booleans, though, because that could cause some groaning and such. All right, let's talk about something that is not a primitive type, an array. Now, we've seen this quite a bit in our algos thus far. Somebody give me an example of an array. Anybody?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, that's a good one. Excellent. So in JavaScript, the interesting thing is that what I want us to think about arrays like is essentially like a set of drawers. Okay, and each drawer has a particular index connected with it. So if I want to open the drawer where that 3 is, how do I get to it? So what's the syntax to actually open the drawer that has that 3 in it? So we'll say I'll console log this, my array, and then I'll put in brackets at the 2 index, right? Okay, and that gives me 3. If I wanted to get that 5, what do I need to put there? So same thing, square brackets, and then we're going to put in 4 here. Okay, so now I've got 3 and 5. It's giving me out what I want. Is it going to growl at me if I put some strings inside this array instead? No, no problem, right? So I could put my string, another string. Okay, I can also put Booleans inside there. That's fine too. So I can put true. Okay. Now, what are we expecting our console log to do at this point once I save the file?
Sorry, 3 and 2.
So we have 3 and true. Yeah, exactly. So the 3 I didn't change. Okay, exactly as we expected. What else can we do with arrays? Well, arrays don't just have to be single level. Like in this case, we just have a number of different things in our drawers. Our drawers can actually contain, perfect, yeah.
So that explains the same thing that I talked to you about earlier. I can have the X, Y, where you can declare an array to have the first row to have a set of elements, and have as many rows as you want, and then instead of it being my array of the index you want, it'd be my array of the index of the row you want, bracket, then the index you want, so then it goes to the array. Yeah.
So what he's referencing is a 2-dimensional array, meaning that we've got an array that's nested in some kind of outer array. So let's do an example of that. Come down here and we'll say my 2D array. Okay, and then here I'm going to have some arrays inside there, so we'll just keep it pretty simple. We'll just say like 1, 1, 1, 1, and then I'll have another one that, or actually let me just, like that. Does that look pretty good? 3, 3, 3, okay. Okay, so now what we have is we have this outer array that's holding all of these inner arrays. Now later on when we get to the looping part, we'll talk about how we could potentially loop through this and get every number inside those inner loops. Or inside the inner arrays is what I meant to say. Not inner loops, right? Okay. Cool. So arrays can be a little bit more complex, meaning that they can hold other arrays, they can hold strings, they can hold numbers, booleans. They can also hold objects too, which we'll get to shortly. But again, the main thing that I want to get across with arrays is that there is some sense of order here. Okay? So when we were looking at that first array up there, we know for sure that the 1 comes before my string, right? There's no question of what comes first. Later on, when we get to this other data type called object, we'll find out that in an object, order, there is no sensible order. Okay? All right, any questions about arrays before I move on? You guys are getting all this stuff. Either you're getting all of it or you're getting not a lot. Yeah, I'm hoping it's the first. All right, let's talk about objects a little bit. Okay, so with arrays, we know that we have this set of drawers, and there's a particular order to those drawers, right? If I'm looking at a dresser, I can very easily say top drawer is number 1, second drawer down is number 2, and so forth. Now, if I were using zero indexing, just because, for some reason I think like a computer, top drawer would be drawer 0, right? Second drawer down would be 1, and so forth. With an object, it's a little bit different because we're holding key value pairs. It's sort of like looking through a dictionary. And in fact, in Python, you guys will learn later on that what's an object in JavaScript is essentially a dictionary in Python. So it's sort of like, it's a very similar construct. Let's talk about how we can create an object. So I'm going to say var my obj, and I want my object to have some different values. So let's say that my object is just going to be about, well actually I'll make it about one of you guys. Who wants to volunteer to be an object? Griffin. Where's the excitement, guys? You get to be an object.
Just my object, like Griffin.
Yeah, let's do that. That makes more sense.
Then we can just do like page, last.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's set up some data for Griffin, right? So we'll say first name, okay? And this is how I set up a key value pair. I'm going to use the colon to indicate the values coming after this. And then let's put in his first name. Okay. Last name, McManus. Okay. Age, you must be like 25-ish. No?
I'm turning 23 on Thursday.
All right. Well, I guess you're more mature than. So we'll say 22. Okay, cool. All right. Anything else? Do we want to put like his hair color or something like that?
Color.
Oh, favorite color. Okay, what's your favorite color?
Green.
Color green. Yeah, what's your social, Griffin? I want to know everything about you. Don't stop there. All right, cool. So I've got this Griffin object, and as we said, it's essentially just a group of key value pairs. So I have some different keys and some different values. How might I go about getting Griffin's first name out of the Griffin object? Oh, Griffin, question? Oh, you're going to answer the question. All right, yeah. Let's allow someone else to try to figure this out. So, if I want to get Griffin's first name from this object that we've created, how would I go about doing it? How could I do it?
If you do like console.log, you do it, and then parentheses for the first name.
Yeah, let's try that. So you're saying console.log Griffin, and then in parentheses first name, like that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's ask ourselves, what's happening here if I'm using these parentheses over here? What does that look like I'm doing? It looks like I'm actually invoking a function. Do I have a function called Griffin? No. I only have this object called Griffin. So I can't invoke Griffin as a function because it's an object, right? Okay. Anyone else?
We did square brackets instead of parentheses.
Good. Let's try that. Square brackets. Okay. Now, what is the value of first name? Do we have a variable called first name? We didn't create that, right? Okay. So if I want to access a specific key from this object, I'm going to need to actually put that inside quotes. Because otherwise, JavaScript is going to look for some variable called first name, and it's going to say there is no such variable, right? You haven't created that. So this is one way to get the value, is I can just put that like that. So it looks a lot similar to, or very similar to how we were accessing specific indices inside of an array, right? I'm using these square braces, or square brackets, and then I'm just using quotes inside to say, this is the string of the key that I'm interested in. I'm interested in that first name key. I could tell you wanted to ask something, Griffin.
Is there multiple ways?
Yeah, and I'm going to show you another one too.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we're not sometimes.
So let's make sure that this logs out what we expect. There we go. We did in fact get his first name, so that's cool. Let's figure out this other way that we can do it. So let's say I want to console log Griffin. I can also use what's called dot notation to access that key value pair. Okay? So I can say Griffin dot first name. Okay, and it's the exact same thing. Now, one thing about dot notation that we'll get to like some caveats about dot notation, because you can't necessarily use it every single time. There are some situations in which dot notation won't work the way that you expect it to. Okay. So what if I had some variable? I'm just going to create a variable called myKey, and I'm going to set that equal to the string first name. What if I did, let's just predict what we think this is going to do. What if I did Griffin.myKey? What would we predict that that would give us? All right, show of hands. Who thinks that this would log undefined? One person, and then the hand went back down. Yeah, no. I got one person who thinks it's going to log undefined. Show of hands, who thinks this is going to log Griffin? So two people voted, and everyone else just sat this one out. No one sits this out. You got to pick one or the other. Who thinks it's going to log undefined? Okay, I got 4 people. All right, 4 out of 9. So then the rest of you think that that's going to log Griffin. Let's find out. Undefined. Why is that? Why is this not working the way that we were hoping it would?
Because the first name, you didn't specify that it was set to Griffin.
Label as an object either.
So the deal is this. When we say Griffin.myKey, it's actually going to look inside the object for a key called myKey. Did that object have a key called that? No. That's why it's undefined. Okay? But I could put that into square braces if I wanted to do it that way. So let's just change this. Instead of using dot notation, I could put it inside square brackets, and now I'm getting what I want, right? Now I'm actually getting Griffin. The reason why is because now, what is the value of my key? First name. So now it's evaluating to Griffin at the key of first name, and that's pulling up the value. Okay, so that's what I mean by you're going to have to be careful with dot notation because there are certain circumstances in which you're going to want to use bracket notation instead, because whatever the name of that key is may be held in some kind of variable. Okay, so JavaScript needs to evaluate what is the value of that variable before we can go and try and find it inside the object. Okay, any questions about that? Objects. What if I wanted to set a new key inside Griffin that wasn't there before? Well, I could say Griffin dot, I don't know, do we want to give him like a hat property or something? Your hat's black, right?
Hat type.
Hat type. And what's that hat type?
Bucket.
Bucket. All right. Cool. Bucket hat. All right. So if I've added this key value pair, now I can go ahead and console log out Griffin, and I should see that in there as well, right? Console.log Griffin. Okay, now we're seeing that his hat type has been added exactly as we expected. Yeah. Bucket hat.
So that's the way to access all of the variables in it by just calling the object's name. So if you were to, since the object is Griffin, since you just put console.log Griffin, they'll print all the properties of an object.
Yeah, to a degree. Now, keep in mind that we can, because these are complex data types, objects and arrays, we can have increasing amounts of depth. So I can have one object, and then inside there I can have something another nested object, and then I can have another nested object inside that. So if you were to console log, you wouldn't necessarily see all of the nested object. It might just say object.
For this main one, since it's just one.
Yeah. If it's a one level object, yeah, you should see all the properties there. Yeah. Cool. So that's how we can add a new key value pair. Let's get to looping. All right. So what are the ways that we know to loop so far? A for loop, right? Let's kind of create an example here. So we'll say for, let's say var I equals 0, and then I'll create my while condition, right? We'll say while I is less than 100, and then I want to increment that I after every iteration of the loop. Now I just want to console log I. Okay, and let's do that, and you see now we have our numbers all the way from 0 to 99. That's pretty nice. What if I wanted to loop through one of my arrays like this? So I created, how many arrays did I create? Let's loop through that first array, right? All right, Raj, how do I touch every element in that first array? How am I going to write this for loop? Yeah, but I need to change some stuff about, so right now I'm just looping through some numbers, right? But I actually want to loop through that array. So what do I need to change up here inside? Like, where I'm initializing this for loop. What do I have to change there? Do I want to go all the way to 99 like I was before? No. So what's my while condition going to be? So yeah, so we're going to say my array dot length, right? So I want to keep iterating so long as I is less than the length of the array. Okay? And then how do I console log the actual element at that particular index? Yes, that's correct. Raj? How do I get the specific element at this particular index? I do what? Okay, like this. Just put log my array. Okay, at index I, which means I need these square braces, right? Like that. Okay, cool. So let's save that. Okay, excellent. It's doing exactly what we want, right? It's logging each element in that array. Cool. What if I wanted to loop through this array that's a little bit more complex? So I have this two-dimensional array. How are we going to touch every single element inside this? You got an idea on that? Okay.
So you would have my 2D array, and then you would have two brackets.
Okay.
You have the X bracket, and
Right.
you would have a Y bracket. Then you got to think of the first bracket being whatever's before the first comma. So if you were to put my 2D array, and then you put 1 comma 1, when we looked at the 2D array, we noticed that there's 3 separate arrays separated by 2 commas. So whatever's before the first comma is labeled as the 0 element in the 2D array. The what's between the first and second comma is the first element, and then what's after the second comma is the third element. So when you put my 2D array of 1, it will access whatever's in that middle array, and then the second bracket will access the element in that second array.
True. Seems a little inflexible though, right? Because if I'm writing this code, it means that it's really only going to work for certain array sizes. So what if I want to just create a generic loop that's going to work for any two-dimensional array? How could I do that?
So you do 4 bar I equals 0.
Okay.
And it would be I is less than.
So we'll say my 2D array dot length, right? Okay. And then we're still going to increment our I.
5.
Now what are we going to do inside here?
You create another.
Yes,
nested for loop.
exactly. We're going to create what's called a nested for loop. Okay. Do I want to create another var I?
No, you would want to do J.
Yeah, some other letter here because I don't want those two things interacting in any sense, right? Okay, and this is going to happen while J is less than what? This is kind of tricky. Anyone know what my while condition is going to be here? So let's take it piece by piece. Yes, Nick.
Would be my 2D array I dot length.
Yes. So we're going to put in brackets I, which means that we're looking at a specific row, right? Dot length. Okay. And then we want to increment that J in the same way, right? Okay, cool. Now all I want to do is just print out that specific element. So how do I do that?
My 2D array.
So console.log is the function that we're going to call, right? We're going to say my 2D array. And then how do I get both the row and the column that I want?
In the first bracket, you put 5.
Okay, so that's the row.
In the second bracket, you put J.
J. All right. Very good. So we're printing every single element that was inside that two-dimensional array, right? And this is flexible enough that I should be able to add an element up here and not have it create any problems for me, right? So now we have 5 2s, just as expected. Okay. Now the nested for loop here, I don't want you guys to get too kind of hung up or worried about it. I just wanted to show you how we can touch every one of those elements. But it could definitely be pretty confusing if you're looking at this for the first time. All right. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is just the concept that a for loop is really just a special kind of what loop. Anybody know? Yes, Nick.
While loop.
It's really just a specialized kind of while loop. Okay? So if I want to create a while loop, it's going to look pretty similar. Only here, I'm just going to create some initial thing. So I'll say var I equals 0. And then I'll create a while loop, and I'll say, while I is less than 10, console.log I. Okay, what would happen if I ran this right now, if I saved this? Yeah. So ultimately what would happen is that this I is never being incremented, which means that this is always going to be true, right? It's just going to keep logging, as long as it can, as long as the program doesn't crash and get mad at us. So how do we fix that?
After console log
Yeah, so here we could just increment it like that, and then we would be okay. And if I save that, you see that we've logged everything from 0 to 9. Now, you can see how a for loop is really just a special implementation of this. So when we write a for loop, we're doing this part. We're creating that initialized condition. Then we have our while condition, which is after the first semicolon, right? And then we have our after, which is right in here, which is after the second semicolon. Does this make sense to you guys on how a while loop and a for loop are related? Let me have some thumbs on this. So if you guys don't get this, this makes no sense, like this. If you feel like, yeah, you know, kind of getting it, sideways thumb, you really get it, like that, right? Maybe up, right, well, yeah, a little wavery. Where's yours, Diana? Where's your thumb? Oh, good, all right, nice. All right, so Lydia was the only one wavering a little bit. Do you have any clarifications on that you'd like to see? The connection between while loops and for loops? So ultimately, this is doing the same thing as what we've been doing with our for loops. It's just written a little bit differently, right? It's accomplishing the same ends. All right, finally, last thing we want to talk about today is this concept of functions. Who can tell me what a function is? I know some of you guys know what functions are. All right, if nobody volunteers, I'm going to pick someone. Cole, what's a function?
It's a set of rules that you make up and store to call upon later. It's like a tool.
Yeah, actually, that's a pretty good definition. So think of it as he said, a set of rules, maybe a set of instructions. So some things that are going to happen in a certain order, and I can reuse that piece of code all over the place. So let's say I wanted to just have a function that would iterate through an array, and I didn't want to keep writing the manual code for that. How might I write a function for that? So I'm just going to create, I'll say function iterate through array. Okay, what else do I need when I'm declaring this function?
Parentheses and the variable that you deal with.
So I need a set of parentheses here. And because I'm iterating through some array, what do we need? What information is this function going to need? It's going to need an actual array to be taken in, right? And what do we call that? What do we call that when it's in between the parentheses right here? Parameter. Okay? This tends to be a little bit confusing to people. You know, when do we call it parameter? When do we call it an argument? So we'll talk about when you're going to want to call it an argument as well shortly. So inside the body of this function, what am I going to do? Yeah, our friend, the for loop. So for var I equals 0, I less than r dot length, I plus plus. Okay. And then let's just say, instead of iterate through array, maybe let's just call it print array elements. Okay. So inside here, I'm going to console.log what? R at the I index. Good. So I've got this function now, and I actually want to use it. Okay. So how do I call the function? Griffin.
You put print array elements and then parentheses.
Good. So print array elements,
Parentheses a
bracket,
bracket. I mean,
like square bracket?
Square bracket, correct.
Oh.
Because wouldn't you need to pass an array through it in order for it to...
True, yeah, I was going to use one of the ones that we already have, but that's cool. Let's create a new one here. So let's just create a brand new array. We'll start from, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Let's open up our console so that we can see what this is doing. Save this guy here, and you can see that we're, actually, I'm just going to comment out this loop here. And this loop, don't need that anymore. Oh, I've got so many numbers now we don't know what means
I
what.
can see the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Let's do this. I'm going to say console.log iterating through array. Okay, so that's telling us that this function is being called, right? Okay, so we know that we're now iterating through the array. All right, excellent. Typically, though, what is a function going to do? It's not generally just going to console-log some things. What do we typically want to do with a function? Griffin?
I was going to say, sometimes you'd want to bubble sort or sort an array. You'll get an array, but you want to sort it from lowest to highest, so you'll be given an array, and then you'll call a function that'll sort it from lowest to highest, or put it from descending order, or lowest to highest, highest to lowest.
Good. So it might do something to the input that it was given.
Correct.
All right, Nick?
Then you want to return whatever the function is.
So generally, we're probably going to want to return something. Okay, not every time, but in most use cases, you will be returning something from your function. So let's practice doing that. So if I'm going to create some other function, actually, let's create a function inside the Griffin object. How about that? So inside the Griffin object, let's create a function get my name, or get my name. Okay, this is going to be a function that's going to return us out his first plus his last. Okay, so I'm going to set this equal to a function. Does our function need to take anything in? Yeah, you might think that it does. However, I do have access to these things already because I'm inside of the object. So let's try to return this out. Let's say return this dot first name. Does anybody know what this is referencing here? It's referencing the object itself, which is this Griffin object. Cool. And then I want to concatenate this little space here, and I want to put this dot last name on there as well. Okay. So now to call this function down here, how am I going to do that? Okay, Griffin dot get my name, and then what else do I need? parentheses. So that's telling JavaScript, I want to actually call this function, right? Question, is this going to do anything in our console when I save this?
I feel like it should only because that's how we used it before, unless I wonder if we switch it to just the function.
So for sure it's going to call the function. That much I know, right? Because I've got my parentheses there. So I am definitely invoking it. But are we going to see anything in our console at this point? Well, it does return. So see, that's the thing. This function call is going to return something. But is it going to be in my console? Yeah, I would need to console.log that, otherwise I'm not going to see it, right? So if I go like this, save this guy here, you see nothing new was added to our console. Okay? So what I can do is I can print it straight away, or I can just save it as a variable, right? So I can say var Griffin's first name equals the result of calling this function. Now if I want to print out Griffin's first name, we should get what we're expecting, right? So, oh, why am I saying first name? It's his full name, right? Let me change these. Griffin's name. There we go. So now we're getting his full name as we expect.
Could you just run the console.log parentheses Griffin.get my name?
Yes, absolutely. So let's do that. Console.log like that.
No,
Whoops.
not the parentheses between the G and the U.
I thought I put it in there. Yeah, so there we go. That works too. But the main thing I kind of wanted to show there is that sometimes you're going to want to set a variable and assign it the value of invoking some function. Okay, so I just wanted us to see how that looked. Excellent. Any questions about this? I'm going to show you one more loop real quick because I sort of forgot to go over it. What if I wanted to loop through that object? Could I do that? I can loop through the object. The only thing is there any guarantee of the order of the keys and values inside there? So an object doesn't really have this concept of order, but let's just do it to see what it looks like. So if I go for var key in, and then I'm going to say whatever the object that I'm trying to loop through is, so Griffin. Okay. And then I'm going to do console.log. How can I get that value out of there, out of the Griffin object? So I know I'm going to have to say Griffin, right? But how can I access that specific key inside the value for it? Good. Actually, let me ask real quick. Would this work if I said Griffin.key? Exactly. This actual string, this string key, is not inside the Griffin object. So that's just going to keep printing undefined, right? Instead, I need to use those square brackets, like Dante was saying, and then let's see if we get all the things inside. So here we've got Griffin, last name, age, and then we've got green, which was the favorite color, right? And then you see that we've got this function, get my name. So it actually looped through all of the key value pairs, and we just printed out the values. Okay? All right. Sorry that took so long, guys. There was a lot to go over. So let me stop.